Hi, my name's Luke. I'm here to talk about Enterprise for Chemists revision. This lecture or topic is spin-out companies. Um, so to start with, spin-out companies involve any form of business out of a university. This can be anything. Some examples are Amstrad, which was Alan Sugar's electronic company. They did calculators, laptops, computers, you name it. This rapidly expanded. It got to worth about 1.25 billion by 1980, but they made the mistake of trying to improve something that they couldn't improve and lost 90% of its value, and then it sold for 125 million in 2008. And that's because they didn't understand the technology and didn't have the capability that they needed to keep progressing, and companies such as like Samsung and Apple obviously overtook them there. Back to pocket calculators, the Sinclair pocket calculator. Sorry, Amstrad was just about electronics rather than calculators. The Sinclair pocket calculator made a profit of a good 1.8 million, and then the same guy tried making a car but lost 7 million. So it's all about weighing up what's the needs of the customers and stuff like that. So as you can see here, the moral of the story is to figure out what will sell and to maximise the return and minimise the chance of failures. So the reason the calculator worked is because it solved the problem of mental arithmetic, jotted notes, desk printouts, and all the times table multiplication papers that people used to use. So it's good to understand the electronics and understand the buyer. Sinclair had this good knowledge and knew how to work with small compounds and small batteries, how it makes how the calculator will be able to work, and that obviously made people's lives easier, as mentioned, for the problems that it solved. Another example of a successful business or a spin-out company is the drug Prozac. It's an antidepressant, and this sold for, as you can see, $2.6 billion, I think it was, and this improved the quality of people's lives, as it says on the tin, basically an antidepressant. So in order to do make a good spin out or a good new product, you need a mixture of satisfying the need, the capability, having the capability, knowing how to make it, and the ability to make it, and the reward, so obviously the profit. And this is the take-home message. You have to decide whether it's worth it or not. So we're going to start with people's needs. To start with, people are going to want to buy it. People need to want to buy it. So there's no point, let's say, I don't know, making a multicoloured lamp, because people just want a normal lamp to see on, if that makes any sense. Obviously there might be people who do, but you've just got to make sure you know the market need. And people normally want things that do things that something can't already. So for example, automated batch scratcher or something, I don't know, that's something I just made up off the cuff. And it's just there to make life easier, has benefits over the existing things on the market already, and this meets the unmet market need. For example, gadgets, as in like a phone. Nobody knew that people wanted a phone, a sat-nav, a camera all in one, but they made it. So an example of a company problem, like an issue that was needed to be solved by chemists, was Coca-Cola. And obviously the glasses used to be made of, the bottles used to be made of glass, which were heavy and high in energy to make. And then the plastic that did eventually replace it didn't actually keep the cola carbonated enough due to the CO2 escaping through the pores. So the company who was tasked this job were made to create a coating that covers plastic to prevent the CO2 from leaking out. Simple. Another example, just quick, is cardigans. Obviously there's bubbles on cardigans, and to meet that market need, just change the fibre essentially. No pilling fibre. They made something which did it. So obviously these are the unmet market needs. You need to understand what the customer wants. Different customers have different needs, and obviously you need to understand the market. There's a lot of things that you need to understand before launching a business or a product. There's some external factors as well. You need to check out the growth and decline. For example, candles, they used to use well fat, and then finding something that displaces something else, such as the wax they uses now, is something that's obviously better for the environment. There's also wine corks. This is another example of meeting the market's needs in a specific country. So, treating corks to remove tainting materials, making wine taste like vinegar. That was the task that people got set to work on these corks. And obviously there is the option of just having a screw tap, so not to worry about this. But in France, they don't like screw caps, so there's a large market there for finding a solution to this vinegar tasting wine. Next up, we've got capability. This is where we can see whether the people who are developing the product know actually what they're doing. So they need to prove a technical concept, match the market need as always, and you need not just the technical side of things, you need development, manufacturer, distribution, promotion, meaning you'll have to get a couple of extra people in if you don't know these things, like a retailer or something. You've got to make sure you abide to health and safety rules, look out for the environment. There's regulations that are required when making a product. Again, those will be health and safety most likely, as well as the usage of it. And then there's freedom to operate. You need to either file a patent or make sure you're not operating with something that's already been patented. So then, if you're doing that, you're obviously not going to be able to use that because you're using someone else's patent. And you need a sustainable competitive advantage. So you need to protect the technology that you make with a patent, or you just keep things secret until you are ready to make a patent. And finally, the last topic that we mentioned was the reward. Obviously, you need to make a profit or get a loan with a promise that you'll be making money in the future. You need to balance the need and capability to make a profit. So you need to take into account costs and customers and the market need again to make sure that you are getting a profit once you've paid off all of your outstanding costs. For example, there was a London 2012 Olympics training shoe. This met the market need because there were very limited stock. So there was 2,000 VIPs that got these shoes. So if you sold 1,000 pairs per annum from 2009 to 2014, the shoes were £80 per pair, which made it sustainable for 5 years. And that fit the capability because each pair cost £30 to make, and there was an £80,000 machine. So we need to calculate what the actual reward is and when the break-even point is. So when is break-even? Let's work it out. So we do 80 minus 30. So we do the cost of what we're selling it for minus the cost of what we're spending to make it for. So we're doing the price minus the cost, multiplying that by 1,000 because we're selling 1,000 pairs per year. This is just an example question, by the way, which means we're making £50,000 per annum for 5 years. Obviously, that's 250,000. So you break even in year 2 and make about 170,000 profit by the end of year 5. You might need to take into account extra costs like transport costs, manufacturing costs, and all of those works, employment costs and stuff like that. Obviously, they're not included in what we've just been mentioning in this example. You also need to take in the account for the cost of the machine as well, which was taken into account here. And by the time you took away the cost of the machine, you'll realise how the profit works out. Finally, we're going to have a little chat about risks. Obviously, the Amstrad company, which I mentioned earlier, took a risk in trying to develop their company more when they didn't actually have the capability to know what to do. So the risks are if you don't know if something will break or not be purchased. So obviously, if you make something and whether it breaks or it won't be purchased, you won't make much of a profit there. You need to assess the risks. Obviously technology and commercial risks, and you need to be able to manage these risks in order to be able to balance risk against reward and commitment from your staff. So you need to be able to make sure you can manage the risks in order to get a good amount of profit. So a lot of companies will do a risk assessment. They'll need to do a commercial risk assessment, which is the need, which will be assessing whether they actually need the product, whether they understand the market that they're selling to. There'll be a technical capability risk assessment, which is stuff about the development of the product, its distribution, what's the competition out there already. For example, going back to the Amstrad one, they had Apple and obviously Windows and stuff on the surge when they were making laptops. And then there needs to be a business plan. They need to know about the business, and that needs to fit their strategies. All these will have a risk assessment. And then there'll be risks as stuff such as marketing, whether they need extra personnel to help them. And also there'll be a risk or reward, and there'll be a high, medium or low risk. So ideally, what we'd like with the risk and reward is obviously a low risk and a high reward, because that'll mean we're getting the best profit. But to tackle a high risk, high reward, we need effort and a lot of money. So that will mean obviously more money in, but hopefully more money out. But there's a risk of something going wrong. And you also really need a guarantee of money out at the end. So if you add the commitment to minimise the potential of something going wrong, which makes sure you minimise the potential losses. So giving more time or money or hire people to find a lower risk and commitment and higher commitment. So that's just basically saying that to prevent these risks, you just have to invest a bit more time and money and hire some more people in order to make sure you've got a high enough commitment so that there's no problems that occur during the manufacturing process. So summary for successful ideas: you need synergy of reward, risk and market need. You need to understand the market, you need to estimate the reward while you're in production and before you even begin the process, and you also need to make sure you're managing the risks. And that's the end of this topic. This is just about spin out companies and what you need before making a product. And next up, we'll be talking about entrepreneurship and innovation.